And good morning. Let's start off here on EU. As always, we're on the daily chart. We have EU on the top, DXY on the bottom. Now, what's the daily chart showing us? Well, of recent, since that US election, of course, we've looked bearish, right? With a lot of bullish dollar strength. Now, clearly on Friday, we closed out bearish engulfing, bearish day. If I were to look at this leg here, right, because this will be a leg, we've broken below this low, we're very much within a discount. After that large move here on that announcement of the election results, we left behind an imbalance and order block. After taking all this sell side liquidity here, I would imagine there's a case for a pullback at some point to come and fill this area here and retest this as possible resistance, right? So we'll see how that goes. Now, so far today, we've been bearish this morning, at least in the last hour or so. And I think we've just taken a previous daily low for sell side liquidity on EU, and we've definitely taken a previous daily high for buy side liquidity on DXY, and I think even the previous day before that's buy side liquidity as well. Now we still have the previous weekly low, previous weekly high there as a even stronger source of sell side and buy side liquidity, but we'll see if price goes that far. Now, considering we are in this discount and we have now taken that opposing liquidity, we may just have a bullish EU, at least temporarily, right, and a bearish DXY, which also has that same imbalance and daily order block that may be drawn towards. But we'll see more on the lower time frame. As I said, we have more sell side and buy side liquidity available first, which may just draw in price. So let's go down to the 4 hour. All right, so if I just stay zoomed in here on that 4 hour leg, we can see our bearish leg from this high to this low. We have a discount and a premium. On Thursday, we rejected this premium POI here, right? Just about in the premium, that 4 hour imbalance. And from there, we had a bearish Friday. Now we're yet to take out this previous weekly low, which was the low of that leg. So we have this lower high and yet to make a lower low. So potentially if we reverse from here, this would be a weak high, right? Which would make sense for a possible pullback to that premium to challenge these order blocks up here, right? Which could still result in a bearish move, but at the moment, because this low here hasn't been taken out, the highs around here could be weak. Price is just above it, so we could still take out those lows and we could still be drawn back into a premium after taking all that sell side liquidity, but it would look better as a lower low, and therefore this high would no longer be considered weak in that sense. So very much within a discount. We've taken previous daily low sell side liquidity and previous daily high buy side liquidity here on DXY. So we'll see what that does. Obviously price is retreating from there, from taking that sell side liquidity, and we'll see how far that goes. Obviously at the moment we're still pretty bearish with our bearish legs and bearish momentum. My bias here is obviously structurally bearish, but we may have an indication of a short-term bullish pullback, possibly just from using the liquidity here and this higher low that may come into play, at least to come and fill this imbalance here, right? Never mind this weak high. Let's go down to the 1 hour and see that in more detail. So looking at the 1 hour, right, and how close we are to this previous weekly low, it's very possible, and I would expect, given this momentum we're about to close out, as quite a large bearish engulfing candle, right, on the hourly, we may just sweep this previous weekly low. I'm not certain if we'll sweep the previous weekly high on DXY, but we might. So either way, that'll be buy side liquidity and sell side liquidity, which would be a good source. However, if we don't sweep it on DXY, then it's SMC divergence, and it'll sort of give an indication to the same thing as a possible bullish pullback on EU anyway, because it'd mean a weakness on DXY, right? Because it broke that correlation and diverged. So I hope this is clear. Any questions, just let me know in the comments. Now looking into the 1 hour legs, right, we have this clear and obvious order block here with imbalance where we swept buy side liquidity above these highs here and broke down. Okay, now we obviously have had an overnight and weekend range here, and then we've continued to break down. We may leave behind these 1 hour order blocks here, which may form as a resistance, right? But for the time being, I've just noted this one yet isn't confirmed. The reason why I'm looking at possible pullbacks is mainly because of the liquidity, right? We would be taking buy side liquidity from here and potentially here, plenty of sell side liquidity from here and potentially the previous weekly low. Now I prefer not to sell into that, right? We're in a discount, and we've taken sell side liquidity and buy side liquidity while we're in a premium on DXY. If we do get bullish momentum from here, okay, we'll be seeking out the opposing liquidity, so I won't be super confident in going for sells, especially straight away maybe around this area, okay, because I would want to see more the order flow hold from this possible 1 hour POY most likely. So I'd want to see this area hold and break down again on the lower time frame to continue any shorts, in my opinion, because trading against liquidity isn't favorable. So that's why I see that counter trend bullish bias being favorable if we get there. But the structure right now is bearish, so I would still again need to see order flow to be drawn back towards, say, an area like this. So let's go down to the M15 and see what something like that may look like. So this is what the M15 looks like this morning. Of course we can see, right, if I zoom in a bit more, where Asia mitigated this M15 order block, broke down again, headed for that sell side liquidity. Now we've taken previous daily lows, previous daily highs on DXY, probably heading towards this previous weekly low here as well. Now, as I said, we have left behind an M15 order block, which is that 1 hour order block as well. So this may be possible resistance, right? Price may come back from this sell side liquidity down here, and we could possibly even get a corrective pullback to this zone here and look to continue our trend down. Now, as I mentioned, my only problem would be we're coming from so much sell side liquidity and that discount that I wouldn't want to just set an order here, right? That for me would be a bit too high risk coming from these areas and possibly even coming from this previous weekly high here on DXY. So it would be too much of a risk factor for me. So what I would want to see if I am to continue with a short bias would be this. Price to come up, mitigate this zone here, right? I'll allow it to play out. Then we get another break of structure, say on the M15 here, break below this low, and then we pull back to the order block with imbalance left behind from this area being rejected, right? So I want momentum to come from that area, and then I could continue down to those previous lows, which would be a weak low from holding this high. So M15 order block with imbalance around here, break of structure to confirm that area here, possible corrective pullback leaving inducement right somewhere here, and then I would have my order set, stop loss just above the high, down towards those lows there, something like this, right? So this is what it would look like for me. I don't want to set my order here. Maybe if you do, you'd want to put your stop loss above these highs here, but I think we would head for some buy side liquidity, and if this was to happen maybe higher up, that could be a possibility as well. So there's always the possibility of it happening somewhere up here, maybe taking a buy side liquidity above London or above Asia, right? If it goes even higher than that, okay, we could see that happening, right? So something like that, or the first one may occur for us to continue short. I would probably prefer the longs in all honesty, and for the longs I would need to see the order flow completely switch, right? We would need to now come up above these highs and then do the same thing, pull back down to an order block to then continue higher. So at the moment I can't draw that out properly because the order flow has not switched, but like I said, I would need this M15 order flow here, this high to break, price to come above, and then pull back down to an order block or something to then continue higher from this discount, from all this sell side liquidity. Now of course you may get an opportunity from this low here if we create some structure down here, right? And then price breaks above and then pulls back to go higher. So I hope that is clear. Let me remove this. Right, we may get something like this to trade back to the highs, which isn't a bad move because as we know we'd be taking plenty of sell side and buy side liquidity here. So if something like this forms, I would have a look into it. We may get that short pullback up into this area. Don't want to confuse, obviously there's both ways, there's counter trend and pro trend things. As I said, I wouldn't be trading directly from here, I'd wait for the breakdown, and as I mentioned, it may be great to get some sort of counter trend going on from all this sell side liquidity, especially if we form structure down here or if we switch structure up here to head towards this zone there. So I hope that was clear. So let's move on. So as always, to get away from the USD highly correlated pairs, we're going to have a look at GJ, right? So what's GJ showing us here on the daily? Well, Friday closed out, it's a bearish candle today so far we are bullish. This morning we still have previous daily highs and lows intact and weekly highs and lows intact for more buy side and sell side liquidity. So if I was to really try and read this price action here on the daily, right, we can see we have still possible draws on price above because we have an imbalance that hasn't been completely filled and an imbalance above that. We was still very bullish, right, making our higher highs here on the daily, potentially higher low to then go on and make a higher high. But the lower time frame may show a different story, right, because this is like a bearish leg here, pulled back, lower high, possibly go on for a lower low. But we'll see that on the 4 hour. So let's move on. Let's go to the 4 hour and see what that looks like. So on the 4 hour, I'm still seeing this as that possible bearish structure switch, right? Because we did make this high that swept buy side liquidity to go on and make a lower low below these 4 hour lows here. Now we pulled back fairly correctively up to the premium of this leg into this order block here and pretty much rejected those highs and then went lower, making a bearish direction. Now we didn't break below this low, arguably that's a lower low if we did. So maybe this high, high, low, high, 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 low is going to go on and actually eventually break this high here. Continuing with that daily trend up into these draws on prices. So I don't think the 4 hour gives me a secure bias just yet, but we are still internal, in my opinion, to this bearish leg. Okay, just we haven't made a lower low. We are now in this zone here, possibly mitigating a 4 hour imbalance as resistance. So we'll see if this holds. If this holds as resistance, then of course we can go on to make lower lows, right? So an important area here, in my opinion, right, to see if this resistance holds, to see whether this is going to be a weak high or if this is going to be a weak low, if price action breaks down from here. Let's go down to the 1 hour, see if that helps us with our bias. Right, so on the 1 hour, I think we are a bit more bearish. Of course, we had that bullish 1 hour price action when we made our way towards these highs. We then swept that buy side liquidity above the high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and then lower low. You could maybe count this complete thing here as one internal 1 hour bearish leg, right? So I'll just make that obvious there. So from this high to this low. So what's within this 1 hour bearish leg, right? Well, up here, we've got a 1 hour order block, right? These 3 up candles, which create that lower low there. We've left an imbalance here. Price has come up, mitigated that imbalance, taking the buy side liquidity above these previous highs as inducement as well. So it took buy side liquidity there, swept it, possibly going to break down from here. It's also a 1 hour imbalance, right? It's filled, and that's where that 4 hour imbalance is as well, which is mitigated today. So there is a stack of possible resistance confluences here. Okay, it hasn't resulted yet in a massive move, but this morning we had a bearish move. We're now pulling back bullish in the last 10 minutes or so as well. So we'll see how this pans out on the lower time frame now. This is possible structure forming at this high here. So I do still see the potential for lower prices from this zone here. Again, as I said, the 1 hour structure is more bearish. So I would say I'm leaning towards a bearish bias here on GJ, especially if the lower time frame starts to break down, of course. So let's go down to the M15. Let's see what a potential trade opportunity may look like. Now, I don't see anything immediately. Of course, overnight and on the weekend now, we've come back bullish. As I said, mitigated this zone, took the buy side liquidity above these previous highs. Right, there's an M15 order block here. Maybe we'll come up higher to mitigate this 4 hour imbalance a bit more. But we'll see. We don't have to, in my opinion. What I would want to see for a short now is for price to either break down from here. Right, now we've got an M15 lower low breaker structure and then pull back to this M15 order block we can leave behind with this up candle to then potentially go lower. So if I draw that in, we'll have a M15 order block possibly around here, break of structure around this zone, possible inducement from a corrective pullback here. So that's some buy side liquidity that we're going to sweep and mitigate where our order block is, where we would have our order set, stop loss, maybe above the Asia highs if we don't sweep those, right? So somewhere around here to just head towards that discount for whatever percentage you aim for. Okay, so I think this looks good if this M15 order flow breaks down again, right? Giving us that breaker structure coming from a higher time frame POI. Now, if this occurs higher, that would also be fine for me, because then if we come up here and sweep Asia, we would have buy side liquidity swept on our side, internal buy side liquidity from above these Asia highs, swept, right, causing price to possibly break down, or there might be some internal structure that we get to come up and then break, right? So something like this, and then we get to go short from there. So I don't mind if we come up and sweep some extra buy side liquidity here, but as I said, if we also get our original play from there, that would also look good to me as a continuation towards these lows here, and they should be weak 1 hour lows. So I hope that's clear. I know I said a lot. Any questions, let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.